Is there a way for the towns to pay less, or?
Yeah, no, it hasn't been the case, right? So in order to pay less, the state would have to pay in more money. So really what ends up happening over the last, say, since I've been here, when I got here, the state was paying close to about 30% of our budget. And now the state's paying right around 20%. And that's a huge number because our budget's just over $50 million. So 10%, that's $5 million, that's $5 million shift. And it's hard because the state uses a formula to decide how much they think the towns can pay. And I think everyone in the towns would say that's not fair. Like they're making assumptions that aren't accurate. And because of that, the burden's been put on the homeowners, and the state has backed out more and more each year, which is creating the biggest problem. So to pay less, the state would have to come in and, what I would say, pay its fair share, although they're already defining a fair share based on an outdated equation that is causing the closure of some schools in Massachusetts.
All right.
Every single year we've had to reduce the number of teachers, except for the one year when there was the override, and we brought back like 30% of the teachers that were cut the prior year. But this year, Project 211's really been hammering it, and there's schools that are closing. Like North Middlesex, I think there's 2 elementary schools that are looking to close. North Andover's looking to close an elementary school. There's an override coming up in Georgetown, and in Amesbury, they needed like a 7.2% to try to keep, they needed 9% to keep level costs. So places all around us are getting hurt really hard, and because they are, now the politicians are like, oh, we need to really fix this foundational formula and then Chapter 70. When they do that, that should be a big help. But it all depends on the formula they come up with. The challenge also is it's a political thing. It's a political process. So if they come up and they decide they want to do that, there'll be the first year where they'll say, hey, we need a group to go ahead and research this. Then the researchers come back and report in year 2, and then in year 3 it gets debated, and then year 4 it gets implemented. So you're still 4 years away. So for the next 3 years, we have to try to figure out, how do we keep things going the way they're going so we don't lose services, so students have access to as many opportunities as they should have and have had, instead of reducing those. Is that too long of an answer? You can tell me if these...
No.
Okay.
That's good. Are there any... Well, actually, you just answered that one. Well, I actually already know the answer to that one, but you can answer it. Are they giving our parents or like the community, are they giving a lot of feedback and expressing any concerns about how much money is being spent on the budget?
Yes, of course they are. So, like, it doesn't, when you have to increase fees, like that, people don't like having to pay fees. So, athletics went up $50 per sport for next year. Okay, so what people don't understand is if I pay, I don't know, $450 for football, to play football, it costs us way more than $450 to play football. Like, those user fees are not going to cover the sport. Transportation alone is going to be about $2,000 to $3,000 minimum, even if we're just going from here to Georgetown. Like, we have to pay that out. So that money goes like that. So yes, people aren't happy about the fees, but people seem like they understand it's not the school committee doing this.
Is there a way for the towns to team up and share resources or find a way to save money on costs?
Yeah. So I think the towns, for the schools' purposes, that'd be challenging to do, but we've tried to do that a tremendous amount, like in terms of when you have certain programs that are only available in one school, or we didn't have programs. So we create programs so students can go to that program within our district instead of going outside of the district. That's been one way it can work out. But for sure, like if the towns wanted to get together and say, hey, how can we save money? I'm sure there are things that they could do to say, we don't really each need our own fill in the blank. We could all have one regional fill in the blank. Kind of the same way they do with the schools. Instead of each having their own individual high school and middle school, like we have one regional high school, one regional middle school. I'm sure they could do things similar to that. But that's a tough thing to ask an organization to do if they've had it for 100 years or 200 years. And asking someone to trust another group that they haven't worked with like that intimately could be a challenge. But yes, for sure they could create efficiencies that way. Just very complicated. So what ends up happening is when the school committee decides on a budget, that budget number gets then determined how much each town has to pay by the number of students that are enrolled in our school district. So if the number is if the number was $100, right? And Merrimack was 35% of the population, Groveland was 35% of the population, and West Newbury is 30% of the population, that would be $35 to Groveland and Merrimack and $30 to West Newbury. So it's based on how many students, and it's not just the students who are attending, it's the students who are of the age to go to school. So we take, if you're age 5 all the way through 18, because we know we have some students who might go to private school, but they still count in the assessment numbers.
Okay. Are they giving our parents or like the community, are they giving a lot of feedback and expressing any concerns about how much money is being spent on the budget?
Yes, of course they are. So, like, it doesn't, when you have to increase fees, like that, people don't like having to pay fees. So, athletics went up $50 per sport for next year.
Yeah.
Okay, so what people don't understand is if I pay, I don't know, $450 for football, to play football, it costs us way more than $450 to play football. Like, those user fees are not going to cover the sport. Transportation alone is going to be about $2,000 to $3,000 minimum, even if we're just going from here to Georgetown. Like, we have to pay that out. So that money goes like that. So yes, people aren't happy about the fees, but people seem like they understand it's not the school committee doing this, it's not me doing this, it's the state's not funding at the level they used to, so we're left to pick up the slack. The other part of this is the only way for a town to bring in more money is to, of course, do an override. And like, the towns aren't going to be excited about doing an override, because it's kind of one of those words that people don't like to hear. And it doesn't matter the amounts. What it matters is it's the concept. We don't want to have to pay more again, because we're already paying more. So why should we pay even more than that? So yeah, there's been plenty of feedback on fees. The reality is, okay, if we don't have those fees, if we don't do this, then we are cutting more teachers, which means the things we're required to provide, like education inside the classroom, gets greatly reduced, the quality that we're able to provide.
Do we have any partnerships or like other ways of funding that we get other than the state?
Oh yeah. We have, so the federal government provides about this much, the state provides this much, and locally it provides about this much. But even locally, we get hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants every single year. And those grants help sustain a lot of programs that we run. Periodically, if we know they're recurring, they happen every single year. We have positions that are sometimes connected to those. But we go out and get a lot of grants. I mean, you're familiar with the robotics. So the robotics was initially a grant that's set up and was good for the next 2 years. But that grant allowed us to go and buy all the equipment, all of that stuff. So that wasn't taxpayer money, right? That was grant funding. That was grant funded. And that grant was over, I think, $600,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So we actively go out and find those things to try to help offset our costs.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find the other
It's
questions.
a good thing editing is available to us.
Exactly. Just keep running. What's being done at the state level to get more money for the high cost areas of the budget, or to support districts dealing with higher than average costs?
Yeah, so there's a project called Project 211, started by the Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools, to which we're a regional school. We belong to that. And we've tried for years trying to get the attention of our local politicians and state politicians. Even the Amesbury mayor and I have sat in meetings together with senators. They are a jack of all trades, master of none, right? So there, you have to spoon feed them. We were talking about what is the state doing to help.
Yes.
So in the past, we've had great conversations with senators and representatives to explain the challenges. The issue has been that they don't feel it in their communities. And Pentucket has just small representation. If you go to big urban districts, they have way more representatives.
Yes.
So what they want to have happen is pretty much what happens. And the way this funding formula works, the urban districts have been getting a good chunk of money, which they need, by the way. But now what we've been saying is, look, that's true, they need it, but we're in trouble. And we've been continuously getting into more deeper holes financially. And it's not because of us spending, because we're not hiring new people